Underwriters of the Arizona Mining Review include Mining Foundation of the Southwest, a nonprofit organization based in Tucson, Arizona, working to educate the public about mineral resources and the mineral extraction and processing industries.
It's May 25th, 2016. This is Arizona Mining Review. I'm your host, Lee Allison, from the Arizona Geological Survey here in Tucson. And joining us live from Canada is Ken Green, the Senior Director for the Center for Natural Resources at the Fraser Institute. Ken, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
The Fraser Institute every year puts out a survey of mining executives that looks at rankings of jurisdictions of states, territories, provinces, and countries around the world. And we're delighted that you've joined us and can talk about the new results, where Arizona fits in for this. But before we jump into that, help us understand, what is the Fraser Institute and why do you do this survey?
Well, the Fraser Institute is a relatively small nonprofit think tank. We're much like think tanks in the United States. We have a group of experts, economists and others, and we try to teach Canadians about the impacts that government policies, rules, and regulations have on their lives and the lives of future generations of Canadians. And part of that is that we believe that strong economic productivity is necessary to maintain Canadian quality of life, and quality of life, build Canadian quality of life around the world. Canada is an international mining power. It has been for a very long time. Economy, many would argue the country was built on mining and is sustained by it and will need to be sustained by it in the future. And so back in 1997, we were hearing people were saying, the regulations and things were getting very, very onerous, but nobody would talk about it in public. Because they were afraid of being penalized by the regulators. So we decided to find out, to measure what the regulatory climate of the mining jurisdictions were. And so we did it by a survey, anonymous survey, and we started in Canada in 1997. And we've expanded over the years. We've expanded to jurisdictions around the world. We have 109 in the 2015 report. And the reason we have that is because we have a cutoff. We require more than 10 responses before we'll include somebody in our rankings, a jurisdiction on our rankings. So that's basically who we are, and sort of what we do and why we do what we do with regard to the mining survey. It's been since 1997. It's a very, very popular report. It's popular not only with mining companies and groups like your own. It's popular with governments. People who are following mining investments, people who are trying to rank jurisdictions on risk when it comes to making investments. So it's got a lot of different, and the media, which always loves a horse race, and they love to point out that one province is beating the pants off of another province under almost any circumstance. So it's got a lot of audiences, and it's quite widely covered around the world.
Yeah, and that's something we do here in Arizona. Excuse me. We share it with the trade associations and some of the mining companies who asked us to point out when it comes out, but also with state officials and a lot of our stakeholders around the state. So it's getting a lot of traction here in Arizona, which is the #1 mining state most of the time in the U.S. So, so tell us a little bit, how many people did you survey across the world for this, and who are the kinds of people you're surveying?
Well, we surveyed about 3,800 executives around the world last year, in 2015. And they're senior executives at exploration, development, and mining consulting companies. We asked them to respond for jurisdictions where they're very familiar with operations that they've operated recently. We got responses from 450 executives, which is better than a 10% response rate for a blind survey. That's pretty good. An email survey, that's pretty good. And those people represent about $2.2 billion US in exploration spending in 2015 and $2.5 billion in 2014. So, as I said before, we managed to rank 109 jurisdictions with those people and compile the 2015 index.
Okay. Now, you survey them, you cover a large number of policy areas technical areas. Which of the ones you think are the ones that, are there any that really kind of summarize it and put it all together so that you could say this territory, this state, this province, this country really stands out as somebody very good, or a place that's very good for investing and mining, versus this is really a place you need to stay away from?
Sure. Well, so what we do is we survey these executives on 15 different dimensions of public policy. We ask them whether or not, for example, uncertainty about environmental regulations would pose a deterrent to investment, whether they would, it would not pose it would be attractive for investment or deter investment. And the same is true for the taxation regime, political stability, native land claim, uncertainty about native land claims, uncertainty about environmental enforcement of environmental regulation, all the way down to physical stability of the country and whether or not that would encourage or discourage investment. We then take the average values of those questions and we score them on an index from 1 to 100, 0 to 100, where 100 is the top score, you get an A, and 0 is the bottom score. Of course, you get pretty much get a fail. One of the interesting questions you raise is, are certain factors really important? And we've seen over the years that they cluster interestingly, which is in developing countries, there's a lot more trouble with physical security, with concerns about worker disruptions and things like that. Whereas in the developed countries, the things that tend to be most deterring to investment are environmental regulations, native land claims, much more regulatory than as opposed to physical safety and concerns about infrastructure and things like that.
Okay, so maybe if we could take a look at where does Arizona fall into this. When I looked, went through the new survey under the Investment Attractiveness Index, which I think is kind of your overall worldwide, out of the 109 jurisdictions, Arizona looks like it came in at about number 17.
That's right, up from 18 the year before.
Okay.
The Investment Attractiveness Index is a composite index, right? So first we ask people about the policies, excuse me, and we create from that we generate a policy perception index. But then we also weight that index by a place's mineral potential, because what we found when we asked the miners themselves, 60% of their decision making is based on the mineral potential of an area and 40% on the policy environment. And so we take the 60-40 split and we apply that to the policy perception index along with our estimates of reserves that are available under best practices, industry and regulatory best practices. And that gives us the overall investment attractiveness index, which we think is probably the best overall reflection of what jurisdictions which jurisdictions are attractive to investment overall.
Okay. So Arizona, on a worldwide basis, is in the top 20%.
Yes.
But now when we look, go ahead.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No. But when I look and when you compare us within the U.S., I see Nevada is number 1, followed by Alaska, Utah, Wyoming, and then Arizona. So it's interesting, we're number 5 in the U.S., and yet over the last decade, it's been Nevada and Arizona that have been battling for the number 1 position in terms of the value of minerals produced each year. So I think this last year, Nevada was slightly ahead of Arizona because the price of copper was down further than the price of gold had dropped in Nevada. But it's interesting that Nevada is the number 1 in your rankings in terms of attractiveness, when Arizona is at 5, and it's Nevada, Arizona battling for the number 1 producing state. So I may be putting you on the spot here, but what does that say about Arizona? Why aren't we kind of tied up there with Nevada? Or what do we need to do to get up there so that we're either number 1 or number 2?
Well, that's a good question, and there's a limit to what I can really say, because we don't, as you'll understand, with 109 jurisdictions, we can't go and do a literature review of all the changes in mining law that have happened over the last year in these different jurisdictions and point to a factor as to why somebody rises or falls in the rankings. There could be several reasons. One, you could have an actual fall in the rankings, or other places could have an improvement. or as you said, there could be a perception improvement because of different commodities and things like that. But we don't measure those things, so we leave that to actually groups like yourselves and the trade associations who are in jurisdictions to say what changed from last year to this year that affected our attractiveness to investment, and how can we reverse it? There are a few key factors in Arizona that I think might be looked at. When you look at the question of uncertainty concerning which areas will be protected areas,
Right.
what you find is that it's been improving over time, but there's still almost 50% of people who say that impose either a mild or a strong deterrent to investment. That uncertainty about that is a mild or a strong deterrent to investment. As I said, there aren't any people now who say they wouldn't invest for that factor, and that's an improvement over past years. But still, when you still have that many people worried about whether or not which areas are going to be open for exploration and development, you probably have some work to do in getting that down. And another area is regulatory duplications and inconsistencies. Again, about 40% of people say that it's a mild deterrent or a strong deterrent to investment, is worries about regulatory duplication and inconsistency.
And when I look at your numbers, that looks like it's down actually quite a bit from 2014.
It's down quite a bit from 2014. It's up a little bit from 2013.
Right.
But interestingly enough, again, no one in that particular in 2014 said, 2015, I'm sorry, said that they would not invest. Period.
Yes. Yeah. So
that the chart that you have, and I'm not sure you're going to show it, has little red bars for would not pursue investment. I sometimes call those either red hats or dunce caps. If it's that bad, you really need to get those down.
Right.
Finally, another area that loomed large in Arizona is uncertainty concerning environmental regulations. Again, an improvement over time. You're improved from 2014, and in fact improved all the way back from 2011.
Right.
But you still have about 45% of people saying it's a mild or a strong deterrent to investment. Again, fortunately, and there's bragging rights here, no dunce cap on that. There aren't people who say, I won't invest for any reason because of that.
Right.
Some of the regulations.
Great. Well, Ken, I think you nailed it there. You're giving us the data, and it's really up to the folks here in Arizona, in the industry and in government, to analyze this and determine what it is that needs to be fixed, or what are the issues we need to understand that's affecting the mining industry investments. We're delighted you were able to join us, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get you back next year, and the numbers are going to continue to improve for Arizona. Is there any last thing that you want to add that we didn't cover already that you think we ought to be taking a look at, or inviting our viewers to take a look at? We'll make sure that we put the URL up for the report so people can find it online. But anything else that we should be taking a hard look at here?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is, from our perspective, we create the report card. We create the data. We lay it out there so that jurisdictions can compare themselves against their rivals, against their neighbors, against their peers. And then they can dig down as deeply as they want to into the data. We provide all of our data available at no charge through the Fraser Institute. They dig down and decide, okay, of our overall deterrents, for example, you could get in and calculate what percentage of it was based on certain questions, and only decide to focus on those 2 or 3 questions. Or you could ask, how can we incrementally improve all 10 policies, all 15 policy factors, and try to make the changes at the margins that way. But our goal really is to help the world have the right policy for what we consider to be just an extremely important economic activity in an economic sector that not only can preserve prosperity for current generations and future generations, but is one of the biggest drivers of bringing groups out of poverty. Mining is one of the first steps on the ladder with regard to bringing up remote and developing communities. And as personally, for my own personal motivations as a humanist, I like to see the world's poor get wealthier. And I think that mining is one of those ways it can happen. Unfortunately, there's a lot of opposition to mining and from environmentalists and other activists. But we think governments understand the importance of this, and we're happy to help out if any of them want to call us and ask us for a discussion of their particular jurisdiction's data. Our phones are always open.
Hey, that's fantastic, Ken. We'll make sure that the appropriate authorities within Arizona know that and share that, and we'll be posting this. And also, one of the things we do is post the address, so we encourage people in the mining industry to participate in your survey every year. So I'm hoping that we can help get a few more respondents in there and get a broader base of information about Arizona.
That would be great. We really welcome that. So if people want to participate in the survey, send a note to either myself, ken.green@fraserinstitute.org, or to my colleague Taylor Jackson, that's Taylor, Taylor.Jackson @fraserinstitute.org. And give us your name and your position in in your company, and we'll put you into the mailing list, which we'll start collecting data soon.
Okay.
We'll put you into the mailing list, and you'll be sent a survey. Now, be confident that the survey, when you fill it out, will be stripped of your personal contact information. This is an anonymous survey, so while we will have your email address and name, we won't necessarily know if you actually filled out the survey or not, and if you did, we can't associate your answers with your name. So
Okay.
it is an anonymous survey, and we ensure that to keep away any possibilities of retaliation against people for speaking their opinion on on the topic of regulation.
That's good to know. And we'll make sure we put those email addresses up on the screen for our viewers.
That's great.
Great. Ken, as always, it's great to have you and your colleagues on. We love the report, and it's great to hear you walk us through it. So appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you next year.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's great to reach another audience and be able to spread the word of the survey and contribute something to the mining economies around the world. So looking forward to next year.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Thank you.
Hey, well, we're here today at the Ideas 2016 conference at the Port of Tucson. And with me is the owner of Port of Tucson. The founder is Alan Levin. Alan, great event today.
Thank you.
Why is the Port of Tucson hosting something about mining? What's the tie between the port and the mining industry in Arizona?
Well, I need to go back a few years.
Okay.
I used to work for Animex, and I was a project engineer, project manager, what have you, and down at Twin Buttes. And I actually built the uranium plant down there,
Okay.
and that was my introduction to mining.
All right.
And I've always been fascinated about how you can take a pile of rocks and create value. So that just always have had my interest. And I've always wanted to take a course in geology. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree,
Okay.
so I'm a very curious person. And but no, so that was my introduction to mining in Arizona. Animex and Anaconda, and they were all, I couldn't have asked for a better company to teach me about mining. And when I went to work for them, I knew nothing about mining, but they wanted me to run the projects for them and so forth. And in the process, I've learned about ion exchange, resins, SX sections. We actually produced yellow cake down there at Sarita. And we had a product that we'd shipped to Oklahoma for enriching the uranium. So that's kind of how I got involved in it. And then as far as the Port of Tucson, what happened there is the bank approached me about buying this facility or the land, and they had, it was a foreclosure. So you always, and being an engineer, you do your homework.
Right.
And so I did my homework and talked to the people that lost it, if you will, and that went into foreclosure, trying to figure out what did they do wrong. So I found out what they did wrong, and so I bought the property. But the other thing that fascinated me about the property was Union Pacific Railroad and their main line that goes from El Paso to Long Beach, LA. And the more I looked into it, we need to be part of the world economy. And logistics, transportation is a key thing, and the cost of how can you work with Asia or Dubai or what have you. and the cost of exporting your product or importing. And that's what got my interest up. And I actually went to Union Pacific in Omaha, visited with them, told them what my vision was or my dream. And and that was in 96, 97. And then 2000, I actually built my first track out here.
Okay.
2004, we started doing intermodal containers, domestic in the United States. And about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started doing international containers, going over. And basically what happens there is we have the international containers here. If you wanted to ship something to Asia, come pick it up, load it, bring it back. We put it on the train, Long Beach, LA, and then Asia, Shanghai, India, different, Singapore.
So a lot of what you're shipping out of here are mineral products.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other thing is, one of the demonstrations we have up front is a container that is brand new, and there's a company in Australia that designed the container. They're actually manufactured over in China, and they brought about 150 to me here about a month ago, and they're across the road, but one is out front here.
Okay. These are the red ones.
The bright red ones,
Bright red
brand
ones.
new.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is they realized that to be shipping copper concentrate, it's an environmental problem, and so because of what's in the concentrate, and so they made these containers, and from Tucson they'll go by rail to San Francisco, and the way these containers are designed, they actually can take the lid off, dump the product, the concentrate, into a bulk vessel, and tip it back over, put the lid on, and bring it back to me. So that container never goes overseas, but it's a way of getting an environmental product over to Asia.
So it's sealed up right here.
It's actually sealed up at the mine.
At the mine.
So that
You bring
container will go to the mine, and they'll put the concentrate in it.
Yeah.
And the neat thing is they can put about 55,000 pounds of product in there.
Wow, in a single container.
In a single container, because concentrates are very heavy.
Sure.
Right. So, and we've had a lot of interest in that container sitting up front,
Right.
and I'm very pleased about that.
Okay.
But it's a whole new concept in the mining industry, and so an event like this, people can show and tell,
Right.
and they have their bragging rights.
Because prior to that, what they'd have to do is load it onto a truck, I assume.
Yes.
And then bring it down to the rail yard and reload it.
Or truck it all the way to Wymus.
Okay. So
Right.
now, it's really much more efficient.
Right, and when you look at rail and freight and so forth, the cost of rail and the freight is a lot cheaper than having an 18-wheeler on the road.
Right.
And the other thing that happens is, that container will probably replace 2 trucks between here and San Francisco. So there's a lot of, and unfortunately I don't know all the carbon footprint. So I've heard that somewhere.
Yes.
But anyway, so no, it's all about the environment and how can we work with it, and I'm very, very excited about that. So we will actually, the mines will load the container, seal it, put their tag on it, bring it to me, I'll put it on the train, and from here it goes by train to San Francisco.
So lower environmental footprint,
Oh, no, yeah,
reduced costs,
correct.
makes Arizona copper more competitive on the
Oh,
market.
a lot more competitive, right.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So, and as far as the Port of Tucson, it was an idea that I had back in 2000, and what we have today is a dream come true for me.
Well, not only are you shipping product out, but this is a way to bring in heavy mining equipment on rail.
Oh, definitely.
And supporting the mining industry all over the region.
Correct. Here about 2 or 3 years ago, they bought in a reactor here, and it was going up to Safford, I believe, and it was a heavy haul, and the thing weighed about 350,000 pounds.
Ooh.
So they had a special rail car and what have you, brought it in, and somebody came out and did a story on that. I got the picture at my office, but it is an example of how the mining companies or industry can utilize rail, getting something here, and Rosemont Copper. They have a lot of equipment stored here, and I understand they finally got a decision from the Forest Service that was favorable.
There was news this morning coming out.
Was it? Okay.
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really, having worked at Twin Buttes, down by Sarita, in Green Valley, I understand the challenges. But today's industry is so much different than it was in, 1975 when I worked at Twin Buttes. And the mining companies are good neighbors. They want to work together, whether it be in water or transportation or whatever. And
Well, this is really fascinating to see. I think people go to the Port of Tucson. What is that, and what does it do? So I think we package these shows not just to the mining industry, but people around Arizona who are interested in learning more about it. So I
Yes.
think this connection, understanding how transportation fits in with our mining infrastructure and how the mining infrastructure relies on the transportation here, is a critical part of the story.
And the governor was a speaker this morning. I had a chance to visit with him before and afterwards and so forth. And I told him, I said, we need to be part of the world economy
Right.
and the supply chain. And rail and the steamship lines working together
Right.
is a big thing.
You're also a COMEX.
Comex warehouse.
COMEX warehouse.
Right, yes.
Right. So companies can store.
Yes, I actually work for the Comex Metals Exchange.
Right.
Yes.
So this is an official, certified, registered exchange.
So it was a real pain
Yeah,
getting
okay.
that certification.
Well, yeah.
But no, it turned out all right. And there's only 13 of those in the United States.
Okay.
And so I'm proud to be one of those
Yeah.
exchanges.
Well, and that again helps the industry here by
Oh.
having this center here.
I did not realize how important it was for the mining companies to get their product to a Comex warehouse.
Okay.
They get paid right away.
Okay.
And then the traders, we have copper that's been there for over a year. And once it's in the exchange, people are just trading it back and forth. Every so often we'll ship some out, but we do store a lot of copper for the
Yeah.
mines here in Arizona.
Sure. Fantastic.
So.
Alan, thank you so much. This is really exciting. We're looking forward to the rest of today's events.